Hi everyone, I'm your guys' host Jared Carter, and this is Whiskey Business. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be sipping on a very nice Scotch, the Macallan 12, aged for 12 years in cherry casks. It has a nice, rich, deep flavor, as well as a very rich nose with hints of sherry, orange blossom. It's got a very nice dried fruit flavor to it. I can't wait to get into it as well with my guest tonight on Whiskey Business, Bryan Clarke. He is a father, he is a friend, he is a neighbor, he is a great man. He also has a very good sense of humor. I was very excited to get him onto the show because he had stoked the flames in my whiskey adventurism into whiskey by bringing over some of the best drinks that I've had so far. So Bryan, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Check out my blog, liquorlocust.com.
Yep, plug yourself. Feel free. liquorlocust.com. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, Bryan, you have a great sense of humor. I kind of want to get into it with the first question and open a dialogue about that sense of humor. Was there any specific member of your family or maybe comedians that influenced you in developing your sense of humor? And are there any that continue to influence you?
I don't know. My sense of humor has always been kind of dry, and I've liked a lot of humorous writers quite a bit. As an aside, breaking the fourth wall, am I supposed to look at you or the camera, or what have I?
Honestly, you can look at, when you're looking at the camera, hopefully you're looking at the future audience.
Okay.
So if you're looking at them, you're looking at,
I know.
But yeah, feel free on
either. All right, then we'll keep the fourth wall broken there. So, yeah, I don't know. I've liked a lot of humorous writers over the years. Just more dry humor in terms of actual comedians. I like verbal humor a lot. I was always a big fan of Groucho Marx, Jack Benny. One of my favorites, who's a little more contemporary but died a while back, is Mitch Hedberg.
Yes, rest in peace, Mitch Hedberg. Is hilarious.
Amazingly funny comedian with a very dry sense of humor. Stephen Wright. I like that type of kind of deadpan, dry humor quite a bit. So that's always been a bit sarcastic, and so that's the kind of.
I definitely noticed that in your sense of humor, that it always seems like you're trying to point out, the sarcasm. You come to the sarcastic side of, every angle.
Oh yeah, sarcasm's a major language in our house. Yes.
Yeah.
Every single person in our house is pretty sarcastic. Yes.
So would you say that having kind of a similar sense of humor, binds together the Clarke family in a way? That you guys are able to laugh about kind of the same things?
Yeah, or at least it makes communication better in our house because we all understand this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sarcasm coming through.
Gotcha, yeah.
So, it becomes kind of a family language of sarcasm, and all the kids, even my 7-year-old, they're pretty sarcastic. So,
how did you meet your wonderful wife, Haley?
My wonderful wife, Haley, was one of my wonderful swimmers when she was younger.
Gotcha.
So that was our initial meeting. She swam on the swim team that I coached. Actually, it wasn't our initial meeting. It turned out later on that when she was younger than that, she was at a Christmas party that I was at with mutual friends that her dad brought her to, but she was just over in the corner, and I don't remember her at all, but it turns out that we had mutual friends before that I ever knew who she was. So
I mean, it kind of ends up being a lot of the time that the world's a lot smaller than we imagine. It makes sense. I hope that maybe someday I'll have a funny story like that I already met my wife somewhere. But when did you know, so you had known her for a while, when did you know that you were looking at your future wife? When did it stop being?
I didn't know that ever till she, I don't know, probably 10 years later when after she was off to college, and then after she actually was pretty much finished with college, and we had started seeing each other, well, prior to that, but then when she was about finished with college, she gave me a deadline to propose. And so that was kind of when I knew that, oh, hey.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's pretty far along.
Guess I'm probably getting married then. So.
Yeah. She left the option up to her. But So when you were coaching, obviously, you were coaching at, at least a pretty high level. You're producing good athletes from the swim school that you were coaching at. What in your opinion does it take to be a good coach, and what does it take to be like an athlete that performs at the highest levels?
Oh, well, those are different things.
Gotcha.
I don't know. A good coach, I mean, there's a lot of things. It's like, the things I'm good at are sarcasm.
Yeah.
Which really works well with dealing with like teenage swimmers and stuff like that. They understand bitterness and sarcasm a lot more than like, I don't know, sincerity or trying to be too authoritarian or anything.
Yeah.
I was kind of a guilt coach, and I was a very technique-oriented coach.
Gotcha.
So my swimmers didn't work necessarily as hard, but they got a lot of technique that would allow them to, I don't know, succeed in the long term. I think technique is undervalued sometimes, especially at like developmental levels. People just want to like train people hard and make them fast then, but they don't go for the long term. Even
in my experience in basketball, I always found that the most, proficient players, the best players were the ones that preach the fundamentals, If you can master the smallest moves, then you're able to do the biggest moves on the biggest scenes, And it's probably the same way with swimming. Has swimming always been like a passion of yours, or how did you kind of fall into coaching swimming?
Well, no, I want to step back though.
Okay.
Because to the other part about being a great athlete,
like that, of course, yeah.
You have to be screwed up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, we've talked about this for many years. And I've met many like elite athletes and Olympic athletes, and in various sports, primarily swimming, obviously, and stuff, but in other sports too. And the people that are truly great are screwed up. If you're not screwed up, you're not going to get that great. You may be really good, but you're not going to be great.
Trauma creates champions.
It doesn't have to be trauma, but there has to be something wrong with you. It could be something benign, or it could be something not so benign. It could be something in your past, but they're all screwed up because normal people don't want to they don't want to do what it takes to be that great. They don't want to neglect the other aspects of their life. They don't want to be singularly focused. They don't want to normal people don't do that. A normal person that's well balanced isn't going to be so monomaniacal about any one thing, and they're not going to let the rest of their life lapse just to be good at one thing. And so I don't think you want your kid to be an Olympic athlete or an elite athlete or anything, because that means there's something wrong with them.
I want to kind of, take a step back from that and maybe get into a lighter subject. What was it like? I don't really know much about your past. What was it like for you growing up? Did you grow up in California or?
Pardon me, yeah. I was born in San Francisco and then lived in the East Bay till
Gotcha.
I was like in junior high, and then moved to Corning.
Gotcha.
And then I moved to Chico, and so I don't know. My family was always, fairly middle class, not rich, not poor.
Yeah.
No major trauma. My parents were, not divorced. Nobody beat me. My mom knocked my tooth out once when I was, kind of young, but that was about it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Is there a funny story behind that?
I don't know if it's a funny story or not. We were up in Redding at my cousin's house, and my cousin had messed up. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. I don't know, maybe 7. I can't remember, somewhere in that range. And
yeah.
My cousin had messed up one of my things, and we got in a fight, and then came down, and then I called her a bad word and F word and stuff, and my mother just went bam and backhanded me and knocked a tooth out, baby tooth. So
Yeah.
And I got mad, and I was bleeding, so I locked myself in the bathroom. And I walked around, and I dripped blood all over the bathroom as much as I could until...
Oh, no. Along those lines, do you have any funny stories from your childhood that you would think would be worthy of sharing on a comedic-related podcast?
God, I don't know. I look back at some of the things in my childhood are just just things that you can't do nowadays. I don't have a lot of funny... I remember when I was, probably 10 years old, and we lived in Oakland, East Bay. Me and my friend were playing someplace, and this guy came by, and he was putting flyers on doorsteps.
Yeah.
and he had stacks and stacks, and he was like, hey, you kids want to earn some money? I'm like, sure. And he just...
Which is always a great way to start off with any interaction with children. It's like, hey, you kids trying to earn some money? I know have never met you before. A different time.
We were just watching him, and he was like, hey, you kids want to earn some money? We're like, sure.
Yeah.
And so he said he'd pay us to put these flyers. He had, I don't even remember what the flyers were on all these doorsteps up and down these blocks. So he just went along. We just ran and put flyers up, and then we got done. I don't know. We put 1,000 flyers up.
Holy crap!
Places.
Yeah.
And then we hopped in his car, and he drove us to the Giant Burger, and we got burgers and shakes, and he gave us like $10 a piece, and then took us back. But we were gone for like 3 or 4 hours. We'd never met this guy. We didn't tell our parents where we were going. Just asked if we wanted some money. We're like, sure, we're gonna just go.
Different times. I mean, it's crazy to think what would happen if that happened today. Like, there would be like, Amber Alerts. There would be all types of stuff going off.
Oh yeah. And this was the East Bay in the 70s, and it was, kind of an odd time, but yeah.
So when you came around 18, 19 years old, did you immediately go to college, or were you, one of those ones that kind of stuck around and did some other stuff for a while?
No, we just went to school. It was just kind
where did you go?
Chico State.
Gotcha.
When I grew up in Corning, it was just kind of, that was the closest college, and that's just kind of where we never really thought about any place else. Just like, oh.
Yeah.
When I was working in family business, so that was, easy. I just went to Chico State, commuted the first, year.
Got you from Corning?
Yeah.
Got you. And then when you were in college, what did you kind of picture your adult life looking like? And then now actually being, having lived that period, what are some of the, changes and stuff, but some of the stuff that ended up actually coming true and some stuff that,
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any real... I figured I'd stay in the family business, which I did for many years till it went broke.
And what was
3
that?
Years ago. School supplies, which is why I know so much about the binder club.
Okay,
like that school and
that makes sense. Yeah, we had a conversation prior to the interview about all the different types of ways the
paper fasteners
to hold paper, and it turns out there's a lot more than you thought. Considerably a lot more.
We didn't even get started.
We'll get into that later.
An overview.
We'll get into that later. But so then,
talking about staples.
So what was that transition like out of the family, job that you'd been doing forever into coaching swim again?
Well, I've coached swimming. All that time.
Got you.
This coronavirus break is the longest I haven't coached since I was like 19 years old.
Oh wow, yeah. And how has that been kind of crazy with the whole entire Corona thing?
Well, the not coaching has been difficult. Coaching's kind of I like doing it as kind of a mental health thing for me too. So this has been like 2.5 months. And as I say, I've gone through periods of, I used to do much more serious coaching.
Gotcha.
And that stopped when our oldest child was born. But even with that, after I stopped doing serious coaching, I've always done some coaching all through that time, at least 3 times a week.
And so plug the swim school that you guys currently own.
Oh, my wife's business is Water Sprites Swim School. You go to chicowatersprites.com, find information about that, and hopefully in other cities in the near future. So.
Yeah, and I know that, right now with COVID, it's affecting you guys. Have you gotten any word on when you're going to be able to start running?
You don't hear anything from the government, so.
Yeah, well, Water Sprites, you guys are awesome. Do you have any thoughts on the scotch that we're drinking, the Macallan 12?
Macallan's a good scotch for you in the audience. I'm not much of a scotch drinker. My wife's a scotch drinker. I tend to drink bourbon. But this is it's a nice scotch. It's a Speyside. My wife tends to drink Highlander Speysides. They're not as smoky, which I like. So you get a little bit of the peat and stuff, but it's not a heavy smoke. It's a little bit of sweet. It's a pretty easy drinking scotch, something that I like this one quite a bit. So.
He is ousting me and showing how little I actually know about whiskey, but that's okay. We'll gloss over that.
I've had many more years of drinking. So.
That's what we'll blame it on, the experience. So when in doubt, what is your alcoholic drink of choice?
Like a mixed drink or just the type of alcohol? I'm a bourbon drinker.
Let's hear
sure.
both. Get into both.
I'm a bourbon drinker. I like wheat bourbons as opposed to, I like wheaters as they're called because they're a little bit more sweet.
Gotcha.
Which for you in the audience going to be like Maker's Mark or Buffalo Trace, Pappy Van Winkle if you get lucky to find that. Those are all wheat bourbons. Maker's Mark is kind of our household bourbon, day-to-day bourbon. And my drink of choice...
Praise from the audience for that one, for the Maker's Mark. Yeah.
And for instance, Friday night we got to go out for the first time out to dinner during the whole coronavirus thing for like a couple months. And so we went to the Red Tavern and had an Old Fashioned, which is my cocktail of choice.
I love Old Fashions.
Old Fashions are good, yes.
Oh yeah, they just hit the spot.
My best Old Fashioned, as an aside, ever in my life was at the Clown Bar at Circus in Reno by some crusty old bartender who'd probably been working there for 50 years. That was an excellent Old Fashioned.
Damn,
11 a.m.
11 a.m.
11 a.m. Clown Bar, Circus, yes.
What's the story behind that? How did you wind up there? Just enjoying the day?
I was just enjoying Reno. And,
just as one does at 11 in the morning.
11 in the morning, I was like, well, I could probably use a drink. Walked over to the bar. It was not crowded, surprisingly, and the crusty old bartender said, what do you have? And I said, an Old Fashioned. And
Shout out to Reno, the biggest little city in the world.
So, that was probably the best Old Fashioned I've ever had, so...
Have you ever seen Reno PD? Reno PD, I think is what it's called, the Reno Sheriff's Department.
No.
The one where they follow. Oh, it's pretty funny. It's worth a watch. It's a comedic documentary.
No, I know what you're talking about. I don't think it's not exactly Reno PD, but anyway,
it's something like that. Yeah, it's terrible. It's
Reno
terrible.
911?
Reno 911. It's terrible. Definitely. I mean, watch it. Give it a watch.
Watch it. Make your own opinion.
But I want to get into maybe a more serious question. If there was one major issue in the world that you could change, had the power to change, what would you change and why?
Oh God, that's just a dumb question. It depends on my mood. Right now it'd probably be like to, wipe out the earth in some kind of meteor strike. But I don't know if you had the power to do it. I mean, that's just, the trite answer is world peace or,
But I mean, even something small, like if you, for instance, if you could take the fruit stickers off of fruit.
Oh God, I hate fruit stickers.
That was Ryan's answer. It could be anything. I guess it could be all types of things. It's open to interpretation. Something small.
I wish that I would like to invent, like teleportation.
Oh, so if he could change one thing, you would change that we would be able to teleport easily.
Yes.
Have the technology. I fully support that. I would vote you for president.
Oh, if I could invent teleportation.
If you could beam me up, Scotty, I would vote for you. That would be crazy. So how did you feel about raising kids before you raised kids? And then now being a dad, of course, the 4 wonderful kids.
I never really thought about it that much before.
Got you.
I always kind of in my head figured I'd have kids, but I never got around to it. I mean, I was quite old when I started.
Yeah.
And then after raising them, I realized how much kids suck, and it's a lot harder than I, expected it to be, kind of thinking about it. I worked with kids a lot.
Yeah.
Which I think was also helpful, but...
Got you ready for it.
It helped in some senses, but it gave you a false sense of how things were too, because you can't walk away from your own kids. You're there all the time.
Yeah.
When I'm working with kids, I do work with them for a couple hours and then they go home or whatever, so...
You have that break.
Yeah. Plus I have much less patience with my own kids than I do with other people's kids.
It tends to go that way.
Yes, so...
You have a lot more invested in your own kids as well.
Yeah, and I know where they live.
Oh, that's a good line. I think there was sometimes my dad was like, I know where you live, motherfucker.
Yes, that's right.
If you could return back in time to 13-year-old Bryan, what's the piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Buy Apple stock.
Buy Apple stock.
Yeah,
that's just pragmatic right there. That's smart.
That's pragmatic. I was raised, in a pragmatic household. Buy some Apple stock.
Got you.
I don't know what else you would. I think if I wanted to dress that more seriously, I would say I wish I could go back and be more. I was going to say more like I am now, but less worried about what people thought of me. like in high school
Yeah.
in those ages. I was a lot more
self-conscious
and embarrassed and worried about being embarrassed. And I think that I, looking back, that I limited myself from a lot of things that I wish I'd done because of that. At the time I couldn't change it, but now I don't give a crap what people think for a lot of the time. So
I think that's part of maturation, that you realize it's not as important what people think of you as what you're doing. What can you say you're actively doing to better yourself,
Well, and the reality is that most people don't give a crap about you when you're that age at all. I mean, they may laugh at you, but 20 seconds later they won't even remember. It's not as big a deal. You think at that age that everybody's watching you and just waiting for you to screw up, and the reality is most people don't care.
No. And if they do, they're probably not really that important anyway.
No. So I wish that I had, that's an actual thing that I wish that I could have convinced myself.
I think that's just good advice to give, like, anybody that's, like, below 18 but above 13 is just like, hey, they don't care as much as you do. Like, it will be okay, but...
Yeah, like the swimmers at swim meets and stuff, they're worried about, like, looking bad. I'm like, nobody is paying attention to you at all. They don't care. I mean, that's another bitter pill if you ever realize that nobody gives a shit about you. But it provides you some emotional protection as well.
There's some comfort there.
Yeah, there's some comfort. They don't care.
Yeah. And when you're at, those swim meets, when early on did you know you were competitive? Did you inherit that competitiveness, or was that more learned, would you say? Was it when you went to school that you realized you didn't like losing and stuff like that?
Well, I don't know if I'm that competitive.
Do you feel like you need to be competitive to be a coach on a high level?
Competitive in a way. I always just wanted my kids. I was competitive for my swimmers. I wanted them to do well.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to provide them the tools to do it. So I guess that's competitive, but I wouldn't say I'm hyper competitive. I'm contemptuous of other people.
Gotcha.
So that I want to prove that my contempt is correct by having my swimmers do better than other people's.
Got you, yeah.
So that justifies my contempt for my fellow coaches and things like that.
Yeah. That's a form of competitiveness.
Yeah, I guess that's I always I tell the kids that one of the things they need to develop is a healthy contempt for other people. And that's another way of not caring about what they think of you or worrying about it, because if you have contempt for them, you don't care what their opinion is. And going back to weaving together some of the things you've talked about, so there's also, we've talked about, like, people, if you have two people, if you have somebody that, like, in competition, you have somebody that likes to win, somebody that hates to lose, bet on the person that hates to lose.
Much more, yeah.
People that hate to lose, they get less joy out of it, but they're going to win more often.
Yeah. And in your kids, do you notice that any one of your kids is more or less competitive than the other ones? Or do you notice that maybe, like, one kid was just naturally, inherently, like, I hate losing? Do you see that in any of your children?
Maybe Ender.
I could see it in Ender, yeah.
Well, he's not old enough yet to see, but he's the one that would cut you.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he's got more anger issues and stuff like that, so he may be that one. But
he might have that messed upness that would help him succeed, yeah. So, what are your three most influential moments in time / like pieces of art, pieces of media that would you say influenced you the most? Do you have like a top 3 list, or maybe you could round it down?
Well, give me, for instance, what you
Books,
mean by
that. Was there any like moment in history or books or pieces of art that when you saw it happen, you almost felt like you had like a change in thinking, that it influenced you in such a way, it was a profound influence?
I wouldn't say specific books, but I would say there's certain things that I took in college that actually had a profound influence on my thinking.
Gotcha.
Not like a piece of art or things, but I think taking...
Like a class?
Taking computer programming.
Gotcha.
Which I think was a basic class because it taught me to think very sequentially. Microeconomics, because I learned a lot with microeconomic theory about like utility theory and things. I think was extremely influential on how I thought about things.
Gotcha.
And then probably those two. Economics classes in general a lot, but probably computer programming and microeconomics were two of the biggest influences on changes in way I thought about things.
That's very interesting. I think a lot of people, the way I envisioned that question when I wrote it was that, people would think back to like moments like maybe like, assassinations or something like that were profound moments. But it's funny that you immediately thought back to skills that had, you learn computer programming and you learn economics, the skills, and those were things that offered profound changes.
Yeah, the things you're talking about, you remember like when Reagan was shot or the Twin Towers. Those are some of the most vivid memories of my life, but I don't think they had profound influences.
They didn't shift any thinking,
in minor ways, but not in major ways. Certainly they were embedded in my mind more than a lot of things, certain things like that, but...
Have you always kind of gravitated more towards, learning and acquiring new skills?
I would say I don't know, I like thinking about things.
Yeah.
Arguing. I like to argue a lot. So things like that. For computer programming wasn't that, but microeconomics, economics classes and things like that.
Yeah.
Or like some of our audience, like, in the law, things like that.
In the law.
Arguing about stuff is...
It can be fun.
Political philosophies, just philosophy in general, stuff like that. I always like arguing, so...
So you would say, I guess maybe a good question would be, you've always tended to gravitate towards like the social arts rather than like, like the, painting, stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly not the fine arts.
Gotcha, the fine arts. Thank you for the word. Yeah, but, so what are some of your favorite comedians? Have you always liked comedy, and when did you really notice yourself getting into it, and what was your favorite comedian that really got you into watching stand-up?
Well, we went back to the ones I said earlier, and I like a lot of stand-up. As I say, probably my favorite of all time is probably Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, Mitch is hilarious.
I love growing up. I loved Johnny Carson. I loved his, kind of deadpan, self-deprecating humor. Some of his funniest stuff was when his jokes failed and he would just make fun of himself.
Yeah.
I like that. He was great with that type of thing where just, things would fall flat, and that was the funniest thing ever, because then he would just laugh at himself, and that was...
You need to be able to have that rebound, because not everything's going to go the way that you want it to, but...
Yeah, Johnny Carson was awesome.
Yeah, Johnny Carson is someone that, today's, anyone who wants to be a comedian today should study, because just his ability, his timing to bounce back from things that were out of his control is awesome. Hecklers, stuff like that, he could handle it all. Did you ever give stand-up comedy a chance? Did you ever think about it?
No.
I could see you doing well on that stage.
When I was young, like your age and things, the last thing in the world I wanted to do was speak in front of any person or group.
So would you classify yourself as more of an introvert than an extrovert?
Oh, I'm definitely very much introverted, yes.
Gotcha. Did you know that pretty early on?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I was forced in college and stuff, in graduate school and in upper division econ and then coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to be fake being extroverted in certain situations where where you're comfortable.
What are some skills for that? What are the two biggest pieces of advice you give to the introvert that has to do public speaking?
Well, make yourself do it a lot.
Gotcha.
I'd say one of the things that I had an econ class, upper division econ, where it was just a discussion class. There were like 6 students and a professor, and all you did was read, it was an institutional economics class. You had to read institutional economics works. And during the course of the semester, you had to lead like 3 one-hour classes yourself, and then a couple of 1-hour classes as a group of 3. You did 2 groups of 3. Well, you just presented, you read a work, and then you presented it. You had an hour presentation on that work.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever had to, do anything over longer than like 10 minutes or something. When you have to start talking in front of even a small group for an hour,
it's hard to keep the interest. Yeah.
Well, you lose your fear, and then when you coach, you're just, talking in front of a group and yelling at kids for,
What have you done that for years now? Yeah.
30-something years or whatever, yeah.
You get good at it no matter how introverted you are.
Well, yeah, and then you find your ground where you're comfortable, and I would still have trouble in certain situations, but if I was on a pool deck, I wouldn't have any problem yelling at anybody or telling them whatever they wanted, or so.
And you use sarcasm and stuff then when
sarcasm, I tell rambling, pointless stories. I, have catchphrases. I have all the stuff all the tools for, yes.
Gotcha. So I have been blessed enough to be able to try some of your cooking. You're a wonderful cook, a great cook. I want to ask you about 2 dishes. What's your masterpiece dish? And what's your go-to, I have 30 minutes to bust this out, I got to make something good for the family dish?
So probably, I don't know, if you, like the dinner we had last night is like a rustic potato soup with kale, leeks,
sign me up.
Kielbasa and potatoes.
Yeah.
And done in not a chicken broth, but a fake chicken broth, because my son is allergic to chicken, but most people would make it a chicken broth.
Yeah.
And then with some French bread, and that's a good one-pot meal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, for a signature dish, I don't know, I try a lot of things. My kids we do crepes quite a bit.
Ooh.
Like strawberry crepes and things like
crepes
that.
Crepes are good, yeah.
And Brazilian black bean stew, feijoada, is a really good...
that sounds delicious.
Yeah, so it's bacon, linguiça, and pork shoulder with black beans spiced, and you make it up in a big pot.
Oh my goodness.
And then you serve it over like white rice with a spicy salsa that you make also with it.
That sounds really good.
It's really good.
Wow, yeah. So when did you start getting into cooking? Was that kind of after you became a family man, or even when you were single, were you cooking quite a bit?
Kind of when Haley made me more of a cook. She likes to eat, and I think that just cooking for somebody else, my high time before I was married, or before at least I was seeing Haley, was, I would go down to the Mangrove Bottle Shop and get 2 beers I'd never tried before, and make a steak and a baked potato, which is still awesome.
It's a great night, yeah.
But, I started to get more fancy for her just because she liked different things than I do. Actually, that's what really started me cooking a lot, is because it could have been her cooking or me cooking, but if I cooked, I made stuff that maybe she liked it, but I knew I liked it too.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I got to control the meals more. So
that's smart, yeah.
So then work schedules and everything else just turned out that I just ended up doing most of the cooking and discovered I liked it, and I was reasonably good at it, at least some aspects of it. So
that's awesome, yeah. Well, kind of winding down on questions and everything, I got a couple left.
If I could be any kind of a plant, what kind of a plant would I be?
I know that you hated this one, and I wasn't going to ask it, but since we're already making fun of the questions I asked, I'm going to ask it. Were there any great mealtime moments that you've had? Where shared over a meal, I know that food brings out the best in the human experience. Was there any one moment that you can point to?
No, we talked about this off camera. No, I can't think of any. I mean, but which is funny because having dinners together is like actually really important in our family. My kids, and we eat late.
Yeah.
But my kids will sometimes we'll be at other people's houses and we'll eat at 6 o'clock, which is early for us or whatever. And then we get home and it's like 10 o'clock and they're like, "What's for dinner?" They're like, "We had dinner." They're like, "No, we didn't have dinner. That was at their house." So
yeah.
We have to have something where we sit down. So most,
that's awesome.
Even not coronavirus, we probably, eat together, 6 nights a week minimum, and maybe mostly 7 nights a week at the house. So
that's really awesome.
But there's not, it's good. There's talking, a lot of laughing, and sometimes there's funny stuff, or people just.
Yeah, you said laughing about farts. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, that's a great moment right there.
Our humor's very funny in my house. I'm not as big on that as some of the other members of my house, but
farting is always good for a good laugh at the Carter house.
That's big. We discuss memes, talk about school. There's Liberty, blah 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 blah. Just keeps talking until he never shuts up, and till her mother yells at her, and I don't know. So that family meals are important, but I can't think of one, oh Dad, I got a girl pregnant or anything like that. So that hasn't come yet. So
thankfully, luckily.
Yeah, that could be later. They're pretty young. So.
That actually brought up another thing I want to sidetrack that. Not the pregnancy.
Okay.
You have a wonderful taste in music. And then honestly, on the block, the most surprising taste in music, considering that I think the first time I asked you for a song recommendation, you were like Flo Rida or something like
Ludacris.
that. Ludacris, yes, Ludacris. So how did you get your music taste when it comes to hip hop and that stuff? Being that you're not usually what I think one would think of when they think of, average hip hop listener. Especially the Ludacris and some of the Deep South music you were referencing.
Well, I like the Southern rap, but part of it's my wife's a bit younger, and she had different tastes, and part of it's the coaching, because I'm a coach that I was always had a lot of swimmers that I was very close to, and I was coaching for a long time, mostly teenagers.
Yeah.
And you'd go to meets and stuff, and they'd play music, and so you'd just, I'd listen to their stuff, or we'd trade, listen and I'd make them listen to one of the songs that I liked, and they'd listen to songs they liked, and we'd spend a lot of time together for these kind of things. So we just listened to different music, and I would they would have psych up things where you're talking about Ludacris.
Yeah.
I remember one of my swimmers, she went away, Sarah, she went to University of Wisconsin. She came back and swam for me in the summer after her freshman year. We were going to a meet. She had her psych up tape, or CD at the time. So we played it on the way up, and the first song on her psych CD for getting ready for races was "Move, Bitch, Get Out the Way" by Ludacris.
Which can you for the people that may not know the lyrics, could you do a quick little lyrics?
Move, bitch, get out the way. Get out the way, bitch, get out the way. There is
spot on, yeah. This is basically
pretty much the essence of the song.
Move, bitch, get out the way, yeah.
So this was her song, and I thought that was totally appropriate for a girl sprinter in college. You headphones on, go on the blocks, listening to "Move, Bitch, Get Out the Way." So so that influenced my taste in music, and some of the stuff that they would listen to, I'd spit on and tell them this is crap and don't play it around. And he's like, this is pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're open-minded at least about it.
No, I'm pretty close.
Well,
but occasionally I'll find something I like. So
that's awesome. I mean, as long as you're out there searching, I want to leave it off with one last question. Then you've done so much in your life. You've coached swim. You've done so much. I know, but I mean, I just want to know: is there anything left that you have one burning desire to do that you feel like I have to get done?
No, I don't. I mean, my burning desire is to not screw up my kids too bad. So that's I still have that to do because they're not that old. But I would like to someday get back to more serious coaching if I could. I'm not sure that I have any specific goals, but I'm always feel there's a sense of fulfillment or satisfaction if your athletes do well. I mean, I know they're doing a lot of the work, but I'm sharing in it and stuff like that. So it's I feel if they do well, I'm a part of it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like living vicariously.
I think coaching is as much, counseling as well. The best coaches prepare their athletes for life as much as they prepare them for, sports.
Yeah, and you have your specialties. Mine in coaching, my best, my specialization is troubled teenage girls.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I mean, not seriously.
You have a way to reaching out, yeah.
Yeah, they respond to the sarcasm with a little underlying sincerity, or at least consideration of what's going on for them, or caring for them. So
yeah, well, you definitely are a great man. I appreciate having you on. I'm your guys' host, Jared Carter, and this has been Whiskey Business. Thank you.
Yeah, you have a very low bar for great.
Get out of town. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Yeah.